Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is News and Week in Review, going over news, games, stuff I played, the videos I did this week, all those usual things. But starting off with news, and timestamps and links to everything down below. But starting off with news, we have a few videos around how the pandemic and shipping and everything else has affected our hobby, which is something that's not new, not by any means, although I do find it interesting that we're having, well, 3 of them right now. 3 of them are coming out. It's a part of it is things slowly catching up to us. Part of it is just it's still an ongoing conversation. We've had companies expressing more and more issues. I've seen companies raising, trying to raise money with selling promos and things like that. It's an ongoing issue. While the initial news was, met with a few videos myself. I did one, Quack Club did one, a bunch of other channels did various videos around the shipping crisis. It is an ongoing issue. And to that end, we have a few different videos. We have, all linked down below. But we have The Pandemic is Killing Board Games, which is a very, very aggressive title and a little bit overstated, but actually a lot overstated. But nonetheless, the concept is all there. It's like a 13-minute long video, I think. Maybe it's 8 minutes. It's a video, and it's one that does a decent job of expressing the issues at play, if perhaps over-dramatizing how much it's killing the hobby. It's definitely affecting the hobby, that's for certain. Then from there, we have Shelf Stories. Shelf Stories sat down with James Hudson from Druid City Games and Danny Lowe from Pandasaurus Games, going over how pricing and shipping and storage and all these other factors are at play when you buy stuff, and how, publishers are frequently having to compensate or subsidize shipping costs because nobody wants to pay shipping costs, or they think that people are overselling them on how expensive it is, when in reality is we've just gotten spoiled by Amazon and free shipping. As someone who ships a lot of games, I understand that shipping is expensive. We charge for shipping. Board Game Co., the retail store that I have, Board Game Co. charges for shipping, and we're still losing money on most of our shipping stuff. And then from there as well, that we also had, that was Shelf Stories, and then lastly we had King of Average. King of Average sitting down to talk about it as well, going over some recent campaigns that have made different choices. He's, by the way, in my opinion, right about one specific aspect. I mean, not only one specific aspect, but there's one aspect that he harps upon in the video that I agree with completely, while I also give companies the grace of they haven't had to learn to pivot there yet for a while, but they definitely should start doing it, which is the concept that companies should potentially estimate shipping, but then never charge shipping up until the final moment of where shipping actually is being, dealt with. They shouldn't be charging for shipping in advance because you can run into these issues. That said, that is only a partial solution because it will still result in inevitable amounts of problems when you charge shipping and it's more than people expected. So it helps alleviate the problem to a small extent, but you still end up with an uproar, just a slightly different uproar. But again, it's worth watching all those videos. If you're someone who backs Kickstarters, it's, in my opinion, generally worth being informed as to the other side of the equation, and the fact that, like, for instance, Druid City Games, let's use them, in terms of their specific, I think, Wonderland's War. They talked about how there's like 15, 20 containers, and the cost of shipping a container, since they ran their Kickstarter, have gone up by like $20,000 per container. Now, if you do some simple math there, 20 containers at an additional $20,000 per container, that's an additional $400,000 of expenses that they didn't anticipate for. Whatever degrees of margins they had, that is $400,000 of expenses, assuming I'm doing the math right, and I think I am. 20,000 extra per container, 20 containers. Am I doing this right? It sounds like, yeah, 400,000. That's a lot of increased costs, so you have to factor those things in as you back Kickstarters or buy anything. And it's also why we are seeing more and more Kickstarters failing, because they're raising their prices, and that raised prices translates into fewer people backing it, which makes sense, but at least better the Kickstarter fail than we continue to end up in these situations where people are losing after everyone's already exchanged money or backed or whatever. Then from there we have a non-news story, which is something from last week that I didn't mention, but this week they confirmed it's not happening, or it says it's unlikely, which is there was a little thing about potentially having Wizards of the Coast split from Hasbro and to do its own separate entity. It seems like that's not happening. I'll have a link down below. You can look more into it. I didn't talk about it last week because there wasn't a lot to talk about. I shouldn't have talked about it this week because there wasn't a lot to talk about, but in case you're interested in that, that is something that was potentially talked about and seems to not be happening. And then lastly, in the news category, there was a fun little video covering Nemesis. Nemesis, I'll link to the video. It's a great video, 3 minutes long, but just covering how much a specific fan loves the Nemesis system and how much he's invested and built up his Nemesis board and table and ecosystem around those things. It's worth paying attention to, in my opinion. And then I'm getting a call from Brian Greer. Brian, I'm going to call you back after this video. I'm sorry. Yeah, Brian Greer, this is Game Brigade. Game Brigade's giving me a shout. I'll go ahead and give him a shout later. I'll talk to him after. Brian, when you watch this week in review, if you watch this week in review, sorry, I was in the middle of doing a video. But in any case, yeah, so Nemesis has a video covering how much a fan loves it and just going through some stuff. It's worth, like, I've seen Nemesis builds before. It's always amazing to me when someone loves a game so much that they heavily invest a lot into the system. Like, kudos. It's awesome. From there, moving into games. Whole bunch of game news. Starting off, Marvel Champions announced an Ironheart Hero Pack with new game mechanics. Basically just more content for Marvel Champions, but with new mechanics attached to it, in case you're interested there. From there, we have Betrayal at the House on the Hill. They announced a 3rd edition. From Avalon Hill, Betrayal at the House on the Hill announced a 3rd edition coming. We already had the 1st edition, we had the 2nd edition, and now we have the 3rd edition. Once again, I can count to 3. That's excellent. Well, that's actually is impressive, especially if you factor in the fact that sometimes in the past I have not been able to count to 4. So establishing that I can count to 3 is actually not the worst. From there, we have Tallywood Rally. Tallywood Rally, a political halfling politics from Final Frontier Games. Art by the Mitcho, built in their universe and their world of Bardwood Grove, of the whole system and stuff they have going on there. I mean, it's halflings and it's politics. What more could you ask for? And then from here we have a bunch of things from CMON. CMON had their news video, news live stream, and they had a bunch of things worth mentioning. First of all, they have 3 books, The Last Resort, Age of the Undead, and Planet Havoc. A bunch of books in their various IP worlds. Not comics, but books. No extra promos, anything else attached to them. I'm semi-interested, but probably not interested enough to make the time to actually read them. From there we have Thundercats and Batman the Dark Knight Laughs or something like that, whatever it is, but they basically have 2 sets of promo packs for the various Zombicide games. We have Batman for Zombicide 2nd Edition, I assume also Zombicide Original, but I don't actually know, and then we have, what's it called, Thundercats for Black Plague, which I've never watched Thundercats in my life, but my kids have, and I always like promo packs for Black Plague, so I'll probably pick it up, probably. I don't need more Black Plague characters, honestly, I really, really don't. Yeah, I really don't. I have too many Black Plague characters, and I'll be playing Marvel Zombies a lot more, which means I'll need them even less. But they're available, in case you want it. And then the big news, we have Zombicide Roll and Write. And before you immediately fast forward to the next segment or whatever it is, because you're like, I don't care about Zombicide, and a Roll and Write will be terrible, I hear you. I would think the same thing. And I'm still hesitant, honestly. Until I actually play it, I'm definitely hesitant. But it is from the designer of Cartographers, which is like one of the most popular Roll and Writes, and so that should give you some degree of confidence that they're not just phoning this one in. And for context, I don't think CMON phones it in general. I think they take advantage of their IPs, both, you know, actual IPs like Marvel, as well as the IPs like Zombicide, their own game systems. I definitely think they milk them for what they're worth, but I don't think they phone it in. But I know many people do, and so I'm saying that this might be a terrible game. I'm not saying it isn't. I am saying that the designer of Cartographers is designing the Roll and Write for Zombicide, and so it has a better than average chance of being better than average, I would say. From there we have Among Cultists from Godot Games. It's going to be coming to Kickstarter shortly. We have Longboard from 25th Century Games, another Reina Knizia title. We're seeing a whole bunch of new Reina Knizia titles making their way to Kickstarter, both new games and reprints. This one seems to be a new game, illustrated by Tristan Rossum. We have Space Base Terra Proxima. This is not the first time it's been announced, but this is, I believe it's being available now in case you want to go ahead and pick that up, the newest expansion to Space Base. We have Jabba's Palace Love Letter, same basic idea. Not the first time we've heard about it, but Jabba's Palace Love Letter should be available to buy in case you want a 17th version of Love Letter. We have Sorcerers Arena from the OP. Basically, Sorcerers Arena is a app, if I'm not mistaken, and they're turning it into a board game. Looks like they have beautiful acrylic standees. Looks like it's a semi-skirmish game as far as, you know, using your Disney characters with Disney stats and Aladdin jumping and stealing and all these different things like that. I'm interested enough to pay attention to it. I don't know if I'll like it or not. Some things from the OP I've really enjoyed. Other things have been a pass for me. It's always a mixed bag there. And then lastly, we have Behext from Smirk and Dagger Games. I'll link to what I have down below, but this is basically a kind of a reiteration on a prior design they have. Looks very intriguing. I'm very compelled without being sold yet until I, you know, see more. But that is everything I have in game news. Which brings me to the topic of the week, which I actually have written down on my little paper. I have a paper attached to my camera where I go over my cliff notes and whatnot. But on my paper I have written down Chasing the New versus Embracing the Old. I'm pushing that off to another week. And that's because literally before, like 2 minutes before sitting down to film this, I watched a bit of a internet pile-on somebody else. And it was just interesting because, let me take a sip of coffee. I need a sip of coffee for this one. This is just, it's not a big deal. It's just, I don't have solutions. I don't have solutions here. a content creator. A content creator posted a video with a thumbnail and some pre-roll or whatever that some people found, that a person found offensive. A person found offensive, and with reasonable reasons, by the way. I'm not attacking that person at all, not in the slightest. I think the reasons for finding it offensive were reasonable. I understand where they were coming from, and then it turned into a bit of a dogpile of attacking that person, both for the general content that they've done, other things unrelated to the specific complaint, a few other people echoing that they also see the same complaint. And I think that a fairly common trend in the comments were that people who knew that content creator were like, hey, I hear where you're coming from, but I guarantee you this person doesn't have a single hateful, problematic bone in their body. They're a sweet guy. They're really nice. There's no way they meant what you think he meant. And the people who didn't know them or had watched some of the videos and dismissed them were either attacking him on other merits completely, unrelated to the, in any way, complaint, or doubling down on, yeah, it's problematic, there's an issue going on. Now, the reason I'm not attacking anyone in this context is because I understand, having seen the aspects, I understand how somebody could walk away with the impression that they did. I'm being vague, but the general idea here is the idea of consequences, intent, potential issues, potential offending of people with things that weren't intended that way. And then the content creator jumped into the thread, and they said, hey, that was not my intent at all. Anyone who thought that really needs to, stop hating on, get the hateful bones out of your body or something like that. But they basically were like, dude, you're reading too much into this. You're spending too much time on the internet trying to find issues where there aren't. Like I said, I don't have solutions here. It's interesting because you often find yourself in these no-win situations. Unless you're always willing, because here's the way it works. You're confronted, and let's pick you. Whoever you are, pick something you've done that could have been interpreted incorrectly, that could have offended somebody. If you are called out for that, if you are publicly called out for that, you generally have two options. Either you completely apologize, retract, take down the video, and completely just, I'm so sorry, it was not my intent, I apologize, I'm this and that. You actually have three options. So the first is an absolute and total apology for what you did. That is always a possibility. It's usually the one that will get you in the least trouble, but I don't know if that means it's the right one. The idea and the concept that people might be offended by things, and I'm not talking about this video, we can have that debate, I'm talking about the concept right now. The idea that people might be offended by things is not inherently an onus on you. Actions do have a concept of right and wrong, and I can take an action that is perfectly okay that will offend somebody. I can take that action, and it doesn't mean I'm wrong. It doesn't mean that I have to immediately pull back and withdraw, which brings us to option two, which is option two is you could pull back and withdraw. You can simply not respond, not engage. Sadly, this is often the best case if you're not willing to do, well, if you're not willing to immediately just apologize and be like, I'm so sorry, it was not my intent, I'll take it down, I'm done, I'm over, done. And then often ignoring can be the next best thing. The third option is usually the one where you engage and you in some way defend yourself. Obviously, you can be the fourth option is you're just incredibly aggressive, and that's just its own issue. You're like, if you attack other people in your context of defending yourself, that's its own issue. But those are, I think, the main three options that are rational but have their own issues attached to them are either complete apologies and retraction, ignoring it entirely, or trying to defend yourself, in which case you often get more hate for trying to defend yourself. Well, if you're going to say anything, you should have just apologized. Well, then you're kind of setting someone up for either they have to apologize, or they're, may as well just not bother contributing. And I don't want this extrapolated outwards to a giant catch-all, meaning there are absolutely times where people will do things that are problematic and you have to engage with those problematic things. The fact that there's this construct we've created that I personally don't like, in which you're always wrong as soon as someone says you're wrong, I don't like that construct. But it also shouldn't be used as a defense to the fact that you can do things that actually are wrong. Which is why I don't have answers here. This is just a problematic conversation that the internets have just made worse by the very nature of the internets being the internets. They've just made them worse. This guy's sitting here. This is Terra, by the way. We'll be talking, or Bad Karma's Curse of the Zodiac. We'll be talking about it another time. But anyways, the internets have just made this problem worse, where everything, the gaps are closed, and the context of conversation is harder. And there's arguments back and forth on both sides of things. Sometimes the argument is, well, you are problematic, why should I have to explain to you and guide you as to why you're problematic? Another person says, well, how am I supposed to know that what I'm doing is problematic if you don't guide me and explain to me? There's all these different contexts and conversations where I understand both sides of the issue. If we aren't willing to call people out, how do we get change? If we do call people out, how do we ensure that we're not just always bludgeoning others? And this specific reason, or in this specific context, bothered me more because I know how sweet the guy in question is. I know it absolutely was not their intent. And the fact that you're going to have what percentage, I guess this is part of the interesting conversation, like what percentage of people is it okay to offend before, I'm phrasing that poorly. Anyone who in any way leads a life in any public setting risks offending someone in some context. So what percentage, what number is okay? Meaning, if I put out a video that reaches to, I don't know, 10,000 people, and it offends one person, should that video not exist? Should I take that video down? What if it offends 10 people? What if it offends 100 people? What is the degree of laxness we have in the fact that sometimes the things we say and do will bother others? I don't have the answer. I mean, this is a similar context and conversation, not to completely jump the shark, although I guess it will jump the shark, but the same conversation we have around things like COVID, or any form of risk. You know, what degree, how many people have to die before you impose something? If masks save a single life, what do you do? And again, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but the point of that comparison is the idea that sometimes things aren't black and white. Sometimes things are very unclear. Sometimes things don't have a cut and dry solution attached to them. And I don't believe personally, speaking for myself, I don't believe that if you can prove harm, it immediately makes that thing wrong. Because I can find plenty of instances where you can prove harm, and therefore it makes that thing wrong. Using life as an example, for instance, if swimming for entertainment, well, swimming for entertainment has a cost. People will, drown. That does happen. How many have to drown before you eliminate swimming for entertainment as a concept? 1 out of everyone? 2 out of everyone? Same context with any person who is any way is doing something for the sake of good. Meaning, if you're trying to take a public stance about anything with the sake of educating, whatever that might be. Maybe you're, I don't know, maybe you're sitting there and you're doing a whole conversation or speech about, I don't have great examples here. Pick a subject, whatever it is. And that subject's going to inspire so many towards good. What if it offends 3 people? I don't have answers. I just have questions. I just don't know what the solution is for these types of situations. Because I can say, well, just give people the grace of assuming good intentions. Always treat them well on the internet, be nice to them, and try to be as respectful and polite as possible. Except, you don't necessarily owe people grace if they're actually problematic. What if they don't know they're problematic? I'm going in circles here because I don't have a way out. I understand the side of trying to resolve issues, and I understand the side of people who don't want to be attacked. I don't have solutions in the middle. It bothered me to see somebody put in a no-win situation where honestly the best thing they could have and should have done is not engaged with the people talking with them. That, in my opinion, is the best thing they should have done. And I don't like the idea that we have an incentive structure where sometimes the best thing to do is just not engage in a goodwill conversation. Sometimes it's better to just say, whatever, it'll blow over, it'll move over by tomorrow, no one's going to care by tomorrow. But that often is the best thing to do. This is a rabbit hole of bad ideas to have this conversation. In any case, moving on to what I played on a much lighter note. On a much, much lighter note, what does Brian want? Brian wants, dun dun dun, oh my gosh. Brian's voice note seems to think that it should be Spanish. I don't know what's going on there. We'll talk to Brian shortly. Okay, anyways, moving on to BG Stats, where I track my plays. BG Stats, let's go ahead into these things, starting off from where I picked up last week. Merlin, got a play of Merlin in. I think I talked about that last week. No new plays since then. Got a play of Earth Under Siege Flashpoint. That is something we'll be talking about more. I will not talk about it heavily now, but I will be getting more plays of it now. Knockdown. Played Nemesis, not Nemesis, Awakened Realms Light, their Knockdown game. I got in a play of that one, specifically the Tainted Grail version of it. I plan to dive into all 3 of the games and then have a review at some point. Overall, enjoyed it. Didn't love it, but I definitely enjoyed it. We have Cartographer's Roleplayer Tale. I'm slowly going through the variety of maps from Cartographer's Heroes, so I can do all the maps that they have and then put out a review on that. I mean, it's more Cartographers. There's no real amazing shining light here. It's just more Cartographers, which is a good thing. We have Twin Palms. Gotten a few plays of Twin Palms. I reviewed that on the channel. We'll talk about that more in the videos of the week. We have Flourish. Flourish from Starling Games. Flourish from Starling Games. Gotten a few plays of that. This is my family. Gotten a bunch of games there. I was not enthused with Flourish. I'll have a review on the channel, but I was not impressed. It was good, but that's where it ends. We have Age of Civilization. Gotten a bunch of plays of Age of Civilization. I enjoyed that one. We'll talk about it more probably at some point, but I enjoyed it. We have Gladius from, or Gladius maybe, Gladius from, I can't remember the name of the company, so I'm not going to say it. Maybe Deepwater Games, maybe? Is that it? I might be that. But Gladius was okay. Another one, I'll probably throw that in a roundup review. I don't know if I'm going to give a dedicated review. We have Core Quest. Core Quest is just getting another play of Core Quest in. I played that with my family in Toronto when I visited them. The first time they had a chance. I left them a copy because I had an extra copy for them. We have Motor City. I got more plays of Motor City in. That's going to be the newest roll and write coming to you from Motor City Games. That's the name of the company. We have Hamlet. I got into play of Hamlet, which is an upcoming Kickstarter. I actually played it a while ago, but they made a bunch of changes, so I have to get another play in. I'll be getting a copy soon, getting some more plays in, and hopefully covering it before the Kickstarter goes up. We have more Motor City, we have Rurik Dawn of Kiev, and we have more Earth Under Siege Flashpoint. And by the way, in the context of Rurik Dawn of Kiev is absolutely amazing. Phenomenal game. I just haven't played it in probably like 8 months, and so I just felt the need to pause and interrupt and say, Rurik is an amazing experience. Got to play with it with the expansion in, which is the first time I played it with the production copy of the expansion. I played the expansion back during the Kickstarter, but it's just a very good game. It makes me sad that I don't play my favorite games as much as I want to. That's why I was going to have a conversation of, you know, Cult of the Old versus Cult of the New, because sometimes I play my old favorites and I'm like, I wish I wasn't reviewing board games. But I mean, I'm very happy to be reviewing board games, but there's a price to be paid, to be sure. And that's what I have over there. That's what I have as far as logged plays so far. With that, let's go ahead into the videos of the week. Videos of the week, going through things one at a time. Starting off the bat with, on Saturday we had a review for Tiny Ninjas and Tiny Ninja Heroes. I gave those a 3 and a 2.5 respectively. Tiny Ninjas is a fun game. It's got a lot of fun things going for it, but also very much on the lighter side and not one that I am requesting myself or that my kids are requesting. And the Tiny Ninja Heroes, I didn't love that one. I thought it was the same concept as Tiny Ninjas, but more bogged down and less fun. So 3 and a 2.5 respectively, all ratings out of 5. We have Saturday again, the Night Cage. Night Cage I give a 3.5. It's one that I played at a few player counts. I preferred it at lower player counts specifically. That's where my rating is. If you're looking at higher player counts, I would just call it a 3 because it was, for me, and I gave context to the review. You can watch the review for more information. A lot of comments, by the way, it's worth paying attention to because I basically gave the caveat that I can see it working more at higher player counts if X, Y, and Z, and the comments seem to back that up. So go ahead and check that out if you're interested. But Night Cage, solid game from Smirk and Dagger Games. Then we have Sunday. Sunday was a review of Unsettled. It's a 5 out of 5. Absolutely love it. It's a 5 out of 5 with the caveat that some planets or situations or individual games can be lower, but I'm giving it a rating, and I said this in the video, I'm rating it a 5 out of 5 based on how much desire I have to continuously dive into it, even knowing that some of the specific setups or planets or, you know, tasks might not be as ideal an experience. So it's either a 4.5 or a 5 in any individual play, but the overall rating is going to be a 5 out of 5. Then on Monday, and by the way, Unsettled has an active Kickstarter. You can check that out if you want to back any of the original or new or any of the stuff. Monday we had to back or not to back. A bunch of games that were tempting me. Nothing I'm specifically that locked in on. The one game I am locked in on is Trinity of Rain, which is fantastic, but also expensive. Then on Tuesday we had a review for Ryozen, which, according to my calendar, was going on Kickstarter February 23rd. And so I put the video up Tuesday. Turns out they bumped the Kickstarter to March 16th, and I didn't get the memo. So my video for Ryozen is up earlier than anticipated. But either way, Ryozen, which will be coming to Kickstarter in like 3 weeks now, apparently. That is one that I gave a 3.5. Solid experience for the game it delivers. Again, 3.5 out of 5. From there we had later on Tuesday we had Twin Palms, review for Twin Palms. Another 3.5. It's a fun trick-taking game. Not my favorite in the genre, but certainly one that I enjoyed. And then later on Tuesday we had Vagrantsong, which was just shy of a 4. I wrestled back and forth with that one. From the thematic immersion of the game is a 5. I love the sense of what's going on with the bosses, but in the terms of the actual gameplay, I feel that my choices and agency is less than I would like, and I feel I'm being a little repetitive and or obvious in what I choose to do. And so to that end, it's just it's one that I really like it. But, and I waffled back and forth a lot on the 4 versus 3.5, but enough waffling that I settled on a 3.5 just for context there. But really solid game. Really solid game that's worth paying attention to for sure. And then later on Wednesday we had, what do we have Wednesday? We had the best small box games. Basically a video covering like 15 or so, 15, 18 if you count the button size, like 18 different games. Some of the best small box experiences I can recommend. A solid collection of tiny stuff that I fit all into a Zombicide box just for funsies. And then on Thursday Thursday, assuming I edited this properly in time, Thursday we have what we backed for January. Very light and short video because January was a light month as far as the games I backed, because I always count these based on campaigns ending in January, and the swell started to pick up with games ending in February. So in February we'll be back to normal, but a very small, short video, but the usual stuff, what I backed in January, in case you want to check that out. And then on Friday we had Deluxified Games, covering, again, 5 new games. I think it's 5, maybe a 6, different game upgrades and systems in terms of some small box stuff, some big box stuff, some Deluxified games, some inserts, the usual roundup of different things. And as usual, if you're interested, there's a coupon code in that video. If you want to get like a discount on Top Shelf Gamer, there's always a coupon code in those videos you can check out. And that is basically the week in review, which brings us to today. Today, I don't know for sure what games I have going up. I will probably have a Motor City review up today, and I will probably have a review for Factory Funner, although that one is more likely to be proxied out with something else. We will ultimately see. It depends on what I get edited in time. I have a bunch of stuff lined up, but not everything is edited as of me filming this video right now. Next week we have a few things. We're going to have upcoming Kickstarters for the month of March, in case you want to check that out. That's going to be going up Sunday, covering upcoming Kickstarters for the month of March, like I just said. And then we'll also have games leaving the collection for February, because it's the first week of March, which means it's time for all those fun things. And that is basically that, which brings us to the games on the table. These are the games I hope to be tabling this week. We have Maglev Metro, which I would love to get tabled again. I keep wanting to table this more, and I still haven't been able to table it again. I really want to play it. Hopefully I actually do. We have Museum Picture, which was on my table last week, but I read the rules and am really excited for it. This is one that's from the designers of Encyclopedia, which I will have a review coming up shortly on that one. But Museum Picture looks great from the reviews. From the rulebook of how to play. It looks like it's a fun little puzzle game that I will enjoy. Very curious to see how it does. I just need to get a table. Then we have Sleeping Gods, which I would love to dive into, although with all the stuff going on this week, I don't know if I will, because we have on the table in front of me, we have the Bad Karmas and the Curse of the Zodiac, which I'll be diving into probably as soon as I'm done with this video. And then we have more Earth Under Siege Flashpoint, which I need to keep going on, because there's a whole bunch of campaign stuff going on here. I want to get a bunch of plays in before I do my review of this one for the upcoming Kickstarter. This, Bad Karmas and Earth Under Siege Flashpoint, are both March 1st Kickstarters, so got to get crack-a-lacking on those. And that is everything we have on the games on the table, literally set up and off to the side. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you have a great weekend, and as always, have a good one.